G'day. It's mower time. Trying to fix an old girl of a mower. She's a Rover 450 series. Easy trim. And she's seen better days, but we're getting there. Slowly. I call it the snotter because it's green, and as much as Richard Rawlings would love me to say it, I like the colour green. And it looks pretty good. But it looks like it needs a few touch-ups here and there. I actually got it from a friend of mine, or a neighbour of mine, so to speak, probably 5 years ago. Swapped it for a 6-pack of cider. It was a good swap, and it's been going ever since. Until recently, where we've had some issues. So issues like not stopping, the governor springs weren't doing what they were supposed to do, over revving, all the usual ongoing bits that you'd have problems with an easy start mower or with a push mower. Most guys have problems with them once they get to a certain age. So here we are, pulling it apart, having a crack. Now, I've done some work on it already to a point where I've been able to rectify some issues, some problem solving, and I apologise if my head's going up. I can't see, and I'm doing this on my phone, so I apologise if my head's going small, tall, whatever the case may be. But yeah, anyway, I've fixed some things, and I thought I'd give you some insight. So anyway, here's my the series 450, the old girl, as I like to call it, the snotter, because she's bright green. Now, we've had issues before, and I'll start with the simple one of basically the air gapping. Even though Briggs and Stratton say there's no issue with the spacing that I have at the moment. Oh, first and foremost, unplug the spark plug. If you don't do that, can create spark. If you start working on stuff, hit them with screwdrivers and spanners and so on and so forth. So yeah, good idea. First tip, unplug the spark plug. No zappy, no owie wowie. Anyway, spacing was a little bit off. This was rubbing right up against, as you can see back inside there, the magneto points. You call it magneto, some people call it different things, different bits and pieces. I don't know, I just call it the magneto. That's what I've heard it's called. And it rests, or it shouldn't rest up against the flywheel, which is this sucker right here. Obviously, when I've got it sitting on the blade, so it might be a little bit hard to see. It spins around, creates a spark between the two, and yeah, and off we go. It just keeps running, and that's for you. I actually don't know what that's for, to be honest. Throttle control through air, looks like with the fins, because they're angled back. Must under air pressure push these back. But anyway, that's another problem. I have reset the spacing in between here, the magneto, sorry, and the flywheel. Briggs and Stratton recommended for this particular model, which is the 9T502, that it should be 0.3 to 0.4 of a mil. I think I've set it a little bit further back than what it should do, but I am using a king chrome feeler gauge, which is over here somewhere. Oh, don't mind my breakfast. Feeler gauge, metric and imperial, does the trick. Quite a few fins. You know what the metric. I don't want to teach you how to suck eggs. Anyway, I've set it in there at the number 12 gauge, which is 0.30 of a millimeter. It does look a little bit more than that, but it's not. And I have clearance, funnily enough, even though because I'm doing this with one hand and I can't show because I can't rest that and prop that one up to spin him, but there is plenty of gap. And I was having starting issues. The reason why, I don't know if that was the main cause, but Briggs and Stratton recommended that may be a good cause. But I'm also was having a problem with stopping said snotter. And I didn't realise, I only just figured this out, and by no fault of my own, is that obviously there's an earthing wire here that goes up to the magneto. And you can see it here, this black cable with a white connection point. There'll be a male version, obviously there's a female, and there'll be male attached to that, and it runs underneath this section here and goes all the way right underneath there, and you can see the wire there in the black entirety, and it connects up to the top of this plate, which is obviously in regards to your throttle control. Now your throttle control at off is in this position when you're running it at full revs. Or what I actually have disconnected this cable so it won't move properly, but you get the gist of it. When you're at full throttle or opening the throttle up, brings this section back, yeah, and creates revs, which then obviously creates the motor to run. And I was unawares that this little sucker in here, I'll point to it with my big old finger, that little section there is attached to said wire down the side there, that little bugger down there. Underneath it, yep, as you can see, I can't really zoom in. I'll try that. Oops, that was a crappy on the phone there. It's attached right there. I didn't know that. Figured it out, and voila, hey presto, once I've cleaned up that, where am I? Sorry, I'm not looking at the camera. Cleaned up that section there, that little side. It was covered in dirt and shit and oil and grease and whatever else. So it was horrible. But the main issues I had was this little plate here was bent quite up, and creating the space, as you can see, I've sort of bent it down now to make more of contact when it comes over and hits this in that direction. It makes contact with that, and then she stops. So this is probably something that you guys already bloody know. It might be basic 101 small engine building, but I had no idea, and I'm figuring it out as I go. So yeah, anyway, that's me green girl. I've got the thing to start and stop. Always a good idea to cover your carby as well, so no shit gets inside it, and you have problems with starting. The next issue I have is the primer plunger seems to have got a leak, so it's not actually sucking fuel from the tank and throwing it into the carby as it would do in a fine mist or a jet. It's actually just bubbling up around here, around this connection, or that space around there. I don't know if it's going to do it right about now, but for some reason, it doesn't matter how I've stuck the button in there and whatever else, she doesn't want to seal. But that's the next project I've got to do on this one. And yeah, it's slowly getting there. I might do some little bit of videos later on in regards to tidying up the cast heads and whatever else, and give them a bit of a paint. I will give it a full sort of strip and work, but you know, as it sits now, I was having issues with starting and or stopping. Now the only thing I've got to know, well, I've got some other issues, but the one I'm going to work on next is obviously the plunger for one. It's up here, pointing at the wrong bit. And also the revs, which I do believe this is governed by this part here with the governor springs. I think it's revving a little bit too high for my liking, especially in a low setting. I cannot have it full throttle. I have to be running almost at stop and then run it about there, which I think is a little bit silly. So anyway, we will move on to that next time. But yeah, the snotter is right there in the distance. Some stage we'll get to me little me Briggs and Stratton 45. It's not a Briggs and Stratton. What am I talking about? It's a Scotty Bonner. I don't even know what I'm talking about. I've done a bit of custom work on that one, a bit of paint work, and yeah, done a whole lot of work on fixing this one up. But that'll be another video. But anyway, it's back to this one, and we will deal with getting this thing up and running. Cheers. Have a good one.